Hi. The world sucks. Thanks for coming to my TEDx. Have a great night. No, but seriously, that's a feeling I've had lately, and I guess it's a pretty common one. Assuming you're regular functioning human beings gifted with empathy still. Right, let's start by running a quick test tonight, Brussels. Hands up if you feel like shit about the overall state of the world. Okay, congratulations. You're human beings, you give a fuck. So the world sucks, but, and it's not a I'm not racist, but type of but. It's an actual but. Nobody can deny that we are witnessing a huge global wave of resistance against it. And I would like to think and encourage even this wave to be simply, no big deal, the world revolution we've been waiting for. And when I say we, maybe it's just me and I'm being super hopeful, because as the radical, queer, feminist, decolonial activist, and professional dancer, they got layers, that I have been waiting for a change indeed. And good news, you can be involved in that change. And you can be involved. And you can be involved. And you, and, no, I'm kidding, it's not one of the layers. But surprise, you have already passed level 1 without even knowing it. Isn't this beautiful? Giving a shit. Because we're gonna go through 3 steps, 3 levels on how to get involved, how to do the revolution, a beginner's guide, basically. And since you've already passed that level 1, it means you're already part of that wave of resistance happening. Wave that is triggered by the fight that could lead, in my opinion as a proud Algerian, to the revolution, the fight for the liberation of Palestine. Yeah, because I'm Algerian, so I was basically born pro-Palestine, tahya tahya. And spoiler alert, I wasn't born in 2023. I know I look young, but let's not push it, Brussels. Yeah, because that fight didn't start on October the 7th, 2023. It's been going on for a minute, meaning 1948, and even longer. And even though it's not a complicated fight, you're basically pro or against apartheid at this point, well, it's always been a polarizing one. In 1991, already, the Afro-feminist poet June Jordan was saying that Palestine is the litmus test of the world, its moral compass. And I think it's more true now than it has ever been with the awakening that the world is going through. And thank fuck, honestly, facing a live documented genocide on our phones, I'm kind of relieved for humanity, if you know what I mean. And about our phones, this awakening is happening thanks to social media that are finally being fucking useful, thanks Black, Jewish, Palestinian Jesus. And I don't think it will come from our phones, but I do think that this wave, this awakening, has the potential to lead the world towards the revolution. And I mean the world, at least the part of the world that's on the right side of history. The part of the world that's finally seeing this fight for what it is and has always been, an anti-colonial fight, with a colonizer and a colonized, with an occupier and an occupied, which takes me to the topic that is linking this potential world revolution that I'm working to see happen to where it always starts, anti-colonialism resistance. And when I say always, it's because on top of the one that's happening now, there's been 2 previous waves in the West's contemporary history that could have led to the revolution. The first one happened in the late 60s and was triggered by protests against the US-led war in Vietnam, so triggered by anti-imperialism resistance. And the second one happened not a long time ago, the Black Lives Matter movement, that was triggered by the murder of George Floyd by the US police in June 2020. So also triggered by anti-imperialism resistance, the police being the armed dog of the imperialist state. By the way, ACAB. You're welcome. So I do think that the link between these 3 waves is pretty clear. The anti-colonial struggle, which takes us to plot twist, not the anti-racist struggle. And you can be involved in that struggle too, which is reaching level 2 of our revolutionary work here, acknowledging the systems of domination of the world we live in. And that systemic thinking is the basis of what needs to be brought back in our political framework now, in my opinion, political materialism. And what is political materialism? I hear you say. Well, it's the understanding that the world functions in systems of domination following the triptych class, sex, race, these systems dividing the world in categories, the ones in power benefiting from the system and the ones suffering from it, which gives, for a class, the rich and the poor, Marxism. Sorry, Carl, I have a time limit. For sex, and we would say now gender, men and women, feminism. And for race, white people and people of color, or people of the global majority, as I like to refer to us now, critical race theory and black feminism. And from black feminism, intersectionality came to wrap it up, stating that not only these systems divide the world in categories, but can also and mostly operate simultaneously. So let's keep that political framework in mind and focus on race, racism as a system, racism as a direct consequence of colonization, which could sound basic as a definition, but in the West, we did kind of grow up with that rampant idea that racism is only that basic form of micro-individual hate coming from basic people from the far right saying basic random things like, oh my God, I hate Arabs. Oh my God, Arabs are all terrorists. And I'm not saying this form of racism doesn't exist. As a person who gets harassed by the far right on a regular basis, I'd be lying if I said it didn't. I'm just saying that the racism that you need to be talking about is systemic racism, the direct consequence of the West colonial history. I mean, we're talking about what? 400 plus years of slavery and post-slavery colonization. Would kind of make sense that it would leave some consequences in today's societies. But to be fair, it would require for the West to do its duty of memory, which the West refuses to do like a little brat. I didn't do anything, Mom. But that's okay, because tonight we're not being bratty. We've been to therapy. We've learned direct communication. We're doing the work. We're acknowledging the consequences of your colonial history, these consequences being that if people who were formerly colonized in the colonial system go through racism, then people who were formerly colonizers in that system benefit from racism. And this has a name, people, white privilege. Took the world quite some time to unpack, though, as whiteness had been implemented as a tool of colonization by being sanctified as the unthought, as the norm, as the universal. A little bit like heterosexuality, in case you know her. You all know it's not an obligation, right? It's also and hopefully just a phase. Whiteness, on the other hand, cannot be a phase. We are not Rachel Dolezal here. It had been implemented very intentionally. And that intentionality of colonization seems to be very important to be reminded, as I sometimes feel like mainstream media would want us to believe that colonization kind of just happens. Like, oh my God, oh, that was your land. Oh, I didn't realize. Oh, shoot, I guess it's mine now. Sorry, not sorry. And that would be colonization. Well, no, colonization is very much intentional, with racism being one of its main intentional tools. Racism is not a feeling, it's not an opinion. We're not discussing whether or not it's okay to have pineapples as pizza toppings. We're not discussing whether or not it's okay d'ajouter des lardons au couscous. It's absolutely not, خلاص. These things we can agree to disagree on. Racism is not one of these things, nor is genocide, by the way. So the same way being the Lulu is not the Solulu, while trying to erase reality by erasing words is also not the Solulu. And I'm specifically here referring to the country I love to hate, the country I live in, France, that has been suggesting to erase the word race from its constitution for over 20 years in order to, quote-unquote, erase racism. Imagine you go to the doctor because your leg hurts, and the doctor is like, don't worry, my they-them, we'll just amputate the leg. Yeah, well, that's France with its racism when, let me give her flowers, France has been one of the biggest colonial empires of the world. So let's not be like France, let's be more like me. Racism is a thing, it's a historical consequence. It's a fact, it's a structure, and it needs to be addressed as such, which is to say structurally, which means we are all racist. Yes, all. The same way we are all classist, sexist, transphobic, fatphobic, sex work phobic, ableist, etc. The key is to acknowledge it. So we're going to go through a little experiment tonight, Brussels. Breathe in. Don't be scared, not too scared. And repeat after me. I am racist. Right, bit louder, less white guilt in the back. No, but congratulations, you're acknowledging the historical and material realities of the world you live in. Just to clarify, though, it doesn't mean that you can be shamelessly racist, right? It just means that you're not in denial of this late-stage capitalism, colonialism era. And that's kind of what I want you all to think about, right? Knowing that these two things are not mutually exclusive, what discriminations do you go through? And what privileges do you benefit from? And from there, how can you challenge these positions, which is reaching level 3 of our activism work, the action level? What can you do to challenge systems of domination, starting with the ones you benefit from yourself? How can you act? And I'm not talking about posting an Instagram story, right? I'm talking about actual actions, like going to protests, boycotting, calling your representatives, giving money, organizing a worldwide insurrection, for all I know. You tell me. Just planting seeds here. But in other words, how can you resist? Because let's be real, once you've opened your eyes, once you've passed your levels, once you've woken the fuck up, you do want to resist, right? Right? And resistance has always been here. Like I always say, where there's oppression, there's resistance. And as an answer to the original colonial violence, because that's what resistance is, because decolonization is not just a metaphor. Well, resistance has taken multiple shapes and forms throughout the years, but one that I love naturally as a dancer is the one of dance. When I started reading Fanon, The Doomed of the Earth, that he wrote in 1961 in Algiers, I had a massive epiphany. Fanon says that the only moment the colonized can free themselves from the colonizers is through body movement, is through dance. So I read that, and everything in my life as a radical activist and as a dancer made sense. Dance is a political art form. It's a tool of resistance. I mean, hip-hop, right? Global revolution in itself. But let's spend a bit more time on its gay cousin, ballroom. Remember that first wave of resistance I was talking about earlier, the late 60s? Well, it also incarnated culturally and gave birth to both hip-hop and ballroom. And I'm not sure you all know what ballroom is, but I'm pretty sure you all know what voguing is, which says a lot about how appropriated this culture has been. But voguing is the dance form of a community that was born out of resistance reasons, mainly resistance against racism. Indeed, the Black and Latinx LGBT community created ballroom to have a space made by them and for them to escape the white spaces they were obligated to navigate in the drag queen community on top of the multiple forms of discriminations they were already going through in the normal world. So they created a resistance space incarnated in an art form. Discovering resistance through dance has been a real revelation to me, and one of the forms my resistance has been taking. So as a final tip in the wish to make the revolution happen, after our 3 levels, giving a fuck, acknowledging, and acting, I would like to encourage you all to not only keep an eye open on any forms of resistance existing around you, but better, create them. Because I do think that once you open your eyes, you can never close them again, and that yes, the burden of seeing is heavy, but I personally wouldn't want it any other way. And I hope that after tonight, you will not either. Thank you. Thank you.